This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for thoughts, theories, queries, and the face that you're seeing online, if you're watching on Zoom, is Steve Valdez, and he's been sort of MIA for a while, and he may go MIA again for a little while, but his thoughts are up on the website, so there's no reason why you can't have a conversation. So, Steve, give us a little background. What's going on?
Well, as I said earlier, and I'll reiterate to everybody, I'm going to move this camera just a little bit. I am. This is my current state. Physically, I just had shoulder surgery. I tore a rotator cuff about a year ago, lifting weights, pretending that my arm was 30 years old instead of 60 years old. So I felt the pain back then, and it seemed like maybe I bruised it, maybe I pulled at something, and I went to a orthopedic guy, and he said, well, let's take a look at it, wait a month, see what happens. Of course, it still hurt. He said, well, let's get an x-ray, see what happens. Couldn't see anything with the x-ray. Well, let's see if the insurance will authorize an MRI. 3-4 months went by before the insurance authorized that. So finally got the MRI. Finally, it actually showed a tear in the rotator cuff. Yeah. I think the band went up like this, and then it stopped, and then it picked up again here and went this way. So there was a pretty good gap from where it tore. So then we had to schedule surgery, yada, yada, yada. So it just seemed like it took forever. But I just had it about 5 days ago. And still, I mean, it hurts. Yeah. I have to be in this sling for a couple of weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, and then physical therapy, yada, yada, yada. And like we were chatting earlier, yeah, could be a good 6 months before I can, do things again. It's my left arm, and I'm left-handed, so that kind of sucks. But I got a month off work, which is good. And when I go back, I just can't really lift anything. I mean, I'm in management anyway, and I'm more of a hands-on guy.
Sure.
I just have to stop. I just have to stop myself from trying to lift things and move things and like I want to, and jump in and do what I want to do, and do get a little more managerial things going instead of hands-on. But you should be all right. It should be all right. It's just I'm used to it now. It's got to be this huge apparatus. I mean, it's
yeah.
They said, well, you're going to be in a sling, whatever. And I thought, okay. And I kept imagining, like on TV, you get a handkerchief, right? You get a handkerchief tied around it. That's a sling, right? So I go to check out at the orthopedic surgeon guy, and he says, okay, that'll be $200. I'm like, for what? And he says, well, this is the sling, and he gives me this huge thing with a foam thing and this and that. So I guess that's the new handkerchief of the day, right? This $200 thing. So here I sit,
I seen one of those a number of years ago for 8 weeks. It was my left arm, and I'm right-handed, so I thought I was very lucky. But now, similar to you, I'm having it in my right shoulder, and I'm sort of contemplating what you've just gone through. But for all of our listeners out there, it's quite interesting, because when you lose some sort of movement in your body, your brain still tells you to keep moving that way. And so sometimes we injure ourselves even more. And I think, that probably did happen to you. You probably thought the original pain, come on, I'm lifting weights. That's all it can be, But
yeah,
there's a little bit more.
One of those things. And then after it happened, it did hurt, but like you said, your body reacts. I was walking at this one place, I can't remember where I was, and I had to duck down to go under something, and or else I would have smacked my head, right? And I was kind of not paying attention. I was on my phone doing something. So at the very last minute, I caught myself right before I was going to smack my head, and my reactions, I just threw my left arm up like this to block my head from being smacked, right? But it was my left arm that I raised up, and I just bent over. It was just excruciating, because prior to the operation, I couldn't really lift it higher than this. So when I threw my arm up like that, I just, oh my God, it hurt. So yeah, you forget. So the good thing about this $200 thing is that it keeps it in one place, and it takes the idea out of my head that I'm going to use it for something and accidentally and make it worse. So,
well,
I guess it's a good thing, but
make sure it heals properly so that you can get back to doing the things that you like to do. That's all.
maybe I can't make my hand gestures like I normally do. You know, that's I'm doing one hand. I mean, I'm doing this, and I don't. You know, it's not translating. You know, I need both hands to do this. You know, so you'll see me maybe leaning or talking like this, and you know, not exactly the same, but I'm coping. I'm trying to cope.
So can you at least use your keyboard at all?
I can't. I have to keep it like right in front of me. So, you know, right now it's on a desk. So I can do it. And in a month from now, I'll have a little bit more mobility when I go back to work. And that's mostly what I'm going to be doing, walking around and supervising, but also, you know, doing things on my keyboard. So right now I'm still doing my right hand on it, but by then I'll be okay to move my wrist and do that a little easier. So
well, get in with the technology and use voice actuation. That's all.
that would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah, that give me an excuse to kind of, you know, step into the 21st century for a change. You know,
right? Exactly.
That would be nice. Also, we had talked earlier too about my hiatus. Been gone for a while. Had some things to work out at home. Some issues like we all have. You know, and it was one of those things where I didn't really have a set date to come back. And in terms of my theories, you know, they kind of come into my head, they go out, they come in, and I write them down. Sometimes when I can remember them, I write them down fast enough that they don't leave before I've had a chance to write them down. So, you know, they've still come and gone. And, you know, I had to kind of rethink this whole process, this whole podcast process. And do I have the, you know, the time or the energy or the thoughts, even the new, I mean, prior to this, I mean, things were just coming and going. I am up in the mid 50s now in terms of numbers of theories. So am I tapped out? Am I, you know, is this it for a while? Am I going to get a new surge? You know, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I could think of nothing for the next 2 months, and then all of a sudden all things pop into my head.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you're being patient with me and leaving me an out to come back in and whatever. It's not going to be regular like it was, I think, until I get that steady stream again. You know, you never know. But there are a lot of things going on, on my end, and like everybody has issues and problems and things. So you know, as long as you've been patient with me, and I do appreciate it. When I'm able to come back and do a podcast, I can. And I want to keep the blog going at the very least, in case, you know, as I get a theory, I can send it to you anyway. You can at least post it, and we can kind of go from there. So appreciate you giving me that flexibility.
Well, and you know, for our listeners out there, I think it's really important to understand that, you know, nothing really stays the same forever. We are all evolving, and things do happen. And even the way that we bring our podcasts, you know, to our listeners. I never want to tell somebody, you know, well, if you can't do it, goodbye. Because you know what? You might have something great that comes up in the future, or you may take one of your old theories and say, hey, I've rethought this. And those are the things that are important to our listeners, because when we share our stories, we each find something that we can relate to in there. So like today, I had no idea about your arm. We hadn't talked about it ahead of time. And as soon as you showed me, it was like, well, we definitely have something in common here, because, you know, I've been contemplating the surgery. And I'm sure there's somebody else out there has gone through something as well. Or maybe it's a writer's block, like we've talked about. So yes, the door is open. When you have a theory, send it on. When you want to share it online, we will open up the podcast and share it with our listeners.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I remember you saying once that you had talked to some people about my theories at I don't know, at a party, you were doing something, and then you tossed out some of my theories, and you had assumed that some people would agree with these and the other people would disagree with these, and it was completely the opposite, you know. And you just never know. You never know what people are thinking, what people are, you know, and times change, you know, 6 months later, you think differently sometimes. I mean, hell, I could rehash every one of mine old ones and come up with new ones just based on the old ones, so hell, I could stretch this out a little longer if I wanted to. Just part
Especially
two.
Especially those baseball ones with the game of baseball changing. So,
oh man, don't get me started.
yeah.
Man, I tell you, baseball is like its own podcast. I think if I probably could, I could probably just chat about that every single week. Something goes on, something different, something crazy. And how about them Indians?
Well, they're the Guardians.
I'm sorry. Oh,
that's
shoot.
okay.
Bossy.
It's so funny because my son worked for them up until a year and a half. Oh boy, it's 2 years now already. And they were always in that fight, but just didn't get close enough. And he called me the other day because the Guardians are going to be playing in Texas, I think next week. And he got tickets to the game. And I said, so who are you rooting for? Your home is Texas now. And he goes, I'll always be a Guardian. And he said, especially the way that they're winning. So it is exciting. But again, as we talk about changes, I mean, that's another thing in sports. 1 year, one team just does it all. And the next year they're at the bottom of the barrel. So
yeah, that's one thing I like about sports. It's every year is different. It's just like the guy said, hope springs eternal. You just every time, every season, it's just, let's give it another shot. Last 10 years were lousy, but you never know. This could be our year. That's always that hope that comes up. So
tell us about your latest theory.
Okay, well, this is theory number 50. This one is called "There are two types of people in this world." I thought I came across this one a month or so back. Looking at you randomly see things here and there, and then I just started looking at these two types of people quotes, but anyway, I'll talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay, so there are two types of people in this world is the name of this one. Theory number 50. We've all seen these quotes. There are two types of people in this world, those who do this and those who do that. Most of them are fairly interesting. They basically just show you what's important to some people and what's frivolous. Some are pretty basic, like those who are organized and those who aren't. Some are inspirational, those who believe the incredible and those who do the improbable. Some are insightful, those who teach and those who grade. Some are practical, those who put ketchup on their fries and those who make a little puddle and dip their fries in it. Some are thought-provoking, those who are radiators and those who are drains. Some are critical, those who leave a mark and those who leave a stain. And then there's the generic ones, those who give, those who take, those who simplify, those who complicate, those who last, those who fade. There's even one for millennials, those who actually wish you a happy birthday and those who just text HBD. I had to take one last jab at the millennial crowd. And finally, the most obvious, those who divide the world into two types of people and those who don't. What got me started on this topic to begin with was another two types of people saying. It went, there are two types of people in this world. Those who look into the mirror and only find fault with what they see, and those who never look into the mirror at all. This one hit me pretty hard because I realized that I was the second type. I've spent a good portion of my life in front of a mirror, shaving, combing my hair, washing my face, without actually seeing myself. As the quote suggests, it's deliberate. I seem to find so much fault with myself that I can't even stomach looking directly into the mirror. But it goes deeper than just appearances. Obviously, as I've gotten older, my physical self more resembles a crumpled piece of paper compared to the clean sheet of my youth. But looking at my reflection also reminds me of all the mistakes that I've made over the years that have adversely affected my family in the present. I see all the fear that's kept me from improving my life, all the do-overs and what-ifs that I continuously haunt myself with. Although it sounds like I should be, I'm not currently in therapy. But maybe what the therapist would say is not to get caught up in the whole two types of people mentality to begin with. Maybe there exists a third type of person, one who looks into the mirror and actually sees the positive attributes they have, the good deeds that they've done, and the potential for a better future. I would like to be that third type of person, someone who doesn't describe to the black and white world that these quotes represent. Not just someone who thinks outside the box, but someone who understands that boxes come in all shapes and colors and sizes. And even the not so attractive ones can still serve a purpose. So for the first time in a long time, I'm going to face that man in the mirror. And instead of berating him mercilessly, maybe I'll just pat him on the back and walk away. Someone once said, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow.
So when you sent this to me last week, it opened up this Pandora box, which I think is good because I grew up always when I would look in the mirror, I wanted to look like somebody else. Okay. My hair wasn't long enough. It wasn't straight enough. It was too curly. It was this or that. Or as a teenager, oh, I have a pimple and, I wish I had skin like somebody else. And it was always comparing myself to somebody else. And it probably was only within the last maybe 10, 15 years that I realized I'm not the only one who does it. In fact, the prettiest, the handsomest, the best, the people that you think are the greatest on this earth, they all have those blemishes somewhere. And if we can take those blemishes and look at how to heal them, because I healed my pimples, okay? Maybe I didn't get the long straight hair that I wanted, okay? Instead I got frizzy long hair. But you have to learn to love what you got. And one of the ways you can do that is if you just walk down the street and look at people, there's nobody who has it all. And when you can accept that, that's when you can look in the mirror and those mistakes that you were saying you made, maybe they weren't mistakes. Maybe they were learning steps to do things better.
Yeah. A lot of things come to mind, thinking about this. There was a quote this guy said a long time ago that really stuck with me. He said, problems are lessons designed for our edification, right? So every problem is a lesson that you can learn, every issue that comes up. I guarantee you it's a small percentage of the people that look in the mirror and are happy with what they see, combing their hair, and they walk away. It's a very small percentage.
Right.
We may think that everybody is like that except me. And I'm the only one, like you said, I'm the only one that, oh my God, I'm the only one that's thinking this, but it's not, you're right. It's not, we're not. God, it was like maybe years ago, I went to one of these water parks, these water parks you get out, everybody's in a bathing suit, you're walking around, getting wet with your family. And before I went there, I'm like, oh my God, I look terrible in a bathing suit. Here I go, I'm gonna, this and that. And you get there, and I swear, the first thing I noticed was that, God, at least 90% of the people did not look that great in a bathing suit. Did not look that. It wasn't like I was just staring at wow, look at this guy. He's got a fantastic guy. Look at this woman. She maybe 10% of the people there had nice figures that looked good in a bathing suit, but 90% of the other people were just like regular people, wanting to get wet, wanting to get splashed, wanting to go down these rides and with their family. And it really, it took me back. That it really kind of opened your eyes to like, yeah, this is the real world, right? It's that little 10% that's not the real world. That's the exception. And you keep trying to chase that dream and be normal, right? It's I just want to be normal. I just want to be like them. And it's not normal, right? The women in the magazines, the guys in the, in the gym, that's the small minority, right? It's okay to be us. And even if we, we're maybe some things we are, some things we aren't, whatever we are, it is good enough for the people we love around us. The people, they'll tell you that it's good enough. It's us we have to convince, right? It's when you look in the mirror, my wife can tell me all the time, you're fine, everything's fine, you're doing good, it's okay. But as soon as I look in the mirror, I see myself and I remember everything, all the things that could have done, should have done. That's that battle that I constantly fight. it's like, oh my God, do you remember that? You remember that? You know, you don't think about it then. You're doing things in life that goes on, and then you look at the mirror and you're like, oh my God, it's you again, right? You're the guy
Yeah.
that screwed up the other week. You know, you're the guy that did this and that. It's tough. It's tough. But it's like you said, it's a mindset. You really got to get past that mindset. Sometimes it takes forever. Look at me, I'm old as hell, and I'm still battling it. Right? You battle and you get past it, and you're good, and then all of a sudden you slip back a little bit. You know, but you almost have to constantly remind yourself that it's okay. You're okay. You know, you're not an idiot. You know, you're not a terrible person. You know, you're not a serial killer. You know, you're okay. You're okay. You know, not easy to do.
So one of the podcasts that I do regularly, it's called Avoid the Maze. And typically my guests are people who tell their story of how they became who they are today, whatever that is. Some of them have become coaches, some of them become writers, some, you know, all different things. And when you hear their story, where they started was in that same sort of weird space of, oh, this is who I want to be when I grow up. And I want to do everything perfectly, you know. But as you're growing, you realize you're not going to do everything perfectly. You know, when I think back to my K through 12 education, it was a struggle for me. I didn't know how to study. I wasn't a sponge that absorbed everything. And so I struggled. And so when I went to college, I struggled more. But when I went back to college 30 plus years later, I soared like an eagle. And it was like, how can this happen? And it's because as you get older, the more you give yourself permission to look back and say, okay, maybe I didn't do this correctly, but I did it correctly for that time. Because
Right.
that's where I
Right.
was.
Right.
And when I go back and I read a lot of your theories, I find sometimes, as we talked earlier, that what it meant to me the first time I read it may be totally different now because I've evolved to a different place. And sometimes it does mean the same thing, and that's okay. But one thing we have to give ourselves permission for is that we aren't perfect and we never will be.
It's true. That's true. And yeah, you know, I didn't think about that until you brought it up before we started. Just we were chatting a little bit. That my theories. I mean, I started this a couple of years ago, a few years ago, and even my ideas have changed in the last couple of years. If I went back and looked at some of my earlier theories, I could either say, you know what, I still think that, but this has changed and that's changed. Some of it I could say, oh my God, I don't even think that anymore, right? I've learned this and this since then. So you're always learning. You're always learning. Um, so yeah, you know, I may just go back to every theory and redo them, you know, part two, you know, and then let's just kind of see where I am with them, you know, because yeah, you evolve, and you know, maybe I'm not as mad at baseball as I used to be, you know. I mean, I had issues back in the day. I had issues, and maybe I've forgiven them. I've forgiven, you know, some of the angst has subsided. Some of it, not all of it, some of it.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, we evolve. You know, we evolve, and even year to year, you know, month to month, you know, something could pop into our head like, oh my God, you know, I never thought of that before, and I've been, you know, haunting myself with this for years, and this is kind of what really I need to be doing. You know, you take a new path. You know, yeah, you know, we're in our 20s. You know, we don't know anything. You know, I mean, some of us get lucky and just glide through school and early jobs and this and that. But the majority of us, you know, in our 20s, we you don't have enough life experience. You know, you have 23, 24. I call them, you know, experience points. You know, if you're 23 years old, you have 23 experience points. Okay. That's different than somebody who has 58 experience points. Okay. It's different. Doesn't mean one's any smarter than the other, but that experience is everything. It's everything. You know, you've been through it. You know, my daughter's in her 30s and she's got little kids. And we've done it all. My wife and I have done it. We've been there. We know what happens in first grade. We know what happens in sixth grade. We know what happens in high school. We've been there. Okay, it's not the same for everybody,
Right.
but those feelings and those issues and those problems, you know, we've seen them, and maybe we're not experts on them, but we can, you know, this is the first time you're seeing them, and you're like, what the hell is going on, you know? And it's just, you know, talk to us, you know, we can help, we can help, we can guide you through some of it, you know, because we've been there, you know, that counts for something. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's where communication is so important. And sometimes generations, you know, rebel against hearing the stories. But I know for a very long time, my youngest son, if we ever tried to say, okay, well, we remember when we did this, he would look at us and go, times have changed. You're old. Strangely enough, now that he's living on his own, our past is not as old as it once was to him. It's now, oh, so that's how you got through your rough financial times. And he just went through this. The first apartment he took, he loved, he thought was great. In his head, he did all the math, and yes, he could afford this. And then he realized, yeah, he could afford it, but then he couldn't afford anything else. So yeah, he decided to move this past December and lowered his rent. He's closer to work. So, but then all of a sudden he's going, I'm still like really tight. And when he finally thought about it, oh, you did talk about inflation. Oh, things have inflated. So even though I'm saving this money, I'm adding more money because of inflation. But what got him through it was then he went back and said, but if I had stayed where I was, I'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, that's good.
That's how you have to sort of look at life as you go forward. That, okay, I need to do this, but it's not getting me exactly where I wanted, but it's better than if I would have stayed here and everything be out of control.
Which is what you told him to begin with. And, you know, obviously he had to find out for himself. Exactly. You know, and the first time some, you know, young kid says, man, you're old. You don't know nothing. You don't know what I've been through. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. What the hell are you saying? And then, then he's going to say, Mom, I got on the phone, help. What did you just say to me? You know, I mean, we all go through it. We all go through it. And, you know, he'll realize, you know, when I was 10 years younger, these are the or moronic things that I did and I thought, you know, I don't think that way anymore. And then you're like, oh, really? Wow, that's amazing. God.
It comes from,
how did you come up with that one, you know?
Yeah. And we learn from our mistakes, and we learn from the mistakes of others. And, you know, I think that is really important. Not that we have to call others out on their mistakes, but if you see somebody who does something and it doesn't work out, sometimes if you just absorb it and try to think it through, you know, again, when he was out buying a car because his car was on its last leg, one of his friends was trying to convince him to buy this beautiful electric car. And he was all excited because he was going to save gas and everything else. But then all of a sudden he looked around. Where am I going to charge it? Now, he lives in Texas. Texas is oil country. They don't have a lot of charging stations right now in Texas. And so he looked around and he thought, that'd be really great. I can't charge it where I live. There's no charging station. I can't charge it at work. We don't have a charging station. I'm going to be pushing this car down the road because it's not charged. And so his eyes were bigger than his head. You know, he wanted to listen to his friend. His friend's car is gorgeous. But instead, he went out and he got what he could afford, something he really likes, something that takes gasoline, because that is what he can fill it up with easily.
Right.
So, you know, and this other friend is now trying to sell his electric car because he's having trouble charging it.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I mean, we're not there yet. You know, it's just, we're close. You know, it's just there aren't enough charging stations around. And then when you apparently when you plug your car in, you can get, oh yeah, I can go, you know, I don't, it takes me too long to get 100% charge. So I only do an 80% charge because that only takes a couple of hours. Jesus. And that can only go so far on it. So I've got to, I've got to gauge when I turn that off and turn, if I've got a hybrid, I turn the other, and it's like, okay, I don't want to have to mess with that, right? Maybe it's better for the environment or whatever, but I don't want to have to hunt. It's hard enough hunting down a gas station that's got low prices on gas. Now I got to find a charging station. I don't care what it costs. Just find me a plug where an outlet I can plug this thing in. I'm not ready for that. Maybe the world is, maybe I'm behind, but I got other things to worry about. I got a lot of things that I got to deal with. That I don't want to have to deal with. Not yet. Anyway. Not until it's a little bit more prevalent and they're on every corner and it's no big deal to plug it in everywhere. Then we'll talk.
Exactly. Exactly. So you're going to go on a hiatus for a while. And when we hear from you, we will be excited to share some more theories and have conversations about them. In the meantime, take care of that shoulder.
I will. I don't have much choice. I'm kind of like, the T-Rex, I can only do so much stuff with my little claws. But yeah, I'll be fine. It'll be fine. If you decide to go through with that, I wish you luck on your shoulder, whatever happens with it. It seems like it's pretty similar. But yeah, recovery time is a bitch. Not looking forward to it. Well, but you do what you got to do.
Yeah, you're in the middle of it, so you got to see it through at this point.
Right. Okay.
You take care, Steve. We will talk soon. Thank you.
We'll see you later, Karen. Bye.
Bye-bye.